If I were confined to exploring just one country for the rest of my days, Argentina would probably be in my top choices. The land of the silver recently took the global stage light by reaching the priced goal in its never-ending gold rush, because after all, football is what the country is mostly known for. But Argentina is way more diverse than you might imagine. Some people even say it should have been a global superpower, but for such a large territory, it's quite underrepresented and explored in the global knowledge. And if you're thinking, but I know about Argentina, what are you even talking about? Well, here's a test for you. Name 5 cities in Argentina. No? Okay, what about 3? I'm gonna give you one final chance. Name 1 city, besides the capital. Okay, now even if you did name a few and obviously are better at geography than I am at pronouncing cities in Romania, I'm sure you'll still be fascinated by what this earth-sheltered domain has to offer. Argentina is the 2nd largest country in South America after Brazil and is the 8th largest in the world, placing between India and Kazakhstan, covering over 2.8 million square kilometers of the planet. Because it's hiding a bit on the bottom of our globe, its size isn't fully appreciated, but take this measurement as an example. If the whole country got a bit tipsy on some good Argentine wine and turned on its side for a vacation siesta, it would nearly go coast to coast over the United States. And if you put it over Europe, it will stretch from the Portuguese Atlantic coast all the way to Russia. Now, do you see the size of this country? And as another way to measure the size, if you go from the northernmost Argentinian settlement, Salvador Maza, to the southernmost city in not just Argentina but the world, named Ushuaia, you need 52 hours by car and ferry. Also, you need to bring your passport, as you'd have to venture through Chile to arrive at this city. You see, Chile's border actually crosses Argentina, then Argentina has a small area of land below that border. And as you can see, Chile shares quite a long border with Argentina, around 5,000 kilometers of it, making it the longest in South America and the 3rd longest in the world. But Chile is just one of the 5 countries bordering Argentina. It also shares a border with Bolivia, Paraguay, Brazil and Uruguay. And even though Argentina has over 9,000 kilometers of borders with its neighbors, not a lot of wire fence was needed, as the country is quite coasted up by the natural elements. In the west, the powerful Andes Mountains are impenetrable even for the weather, and I circle back to this just in a bit. And the north is laced with big rivers like the Pilcomayo, Paraguay, Paraná, Iguazu and Uruguay. While the east has the biggest cover, the Atlantic Ocean, although that proved to be less of a hurdle than Argentinians hoped for some 40 years ago. A major part of Argentina is covered by the Pampas grasslands, an invitingly fertile area that encompasses Uruguay and blesses both Brazil and Argentina. Interestingly, it originally didn't have trees, yet they were later brought in by the settlers. But don't make any mistakes, Argentina has no shortage of wood, from the lush rainforests surrounding the Iguazu Falls in the northeast to the strip of the Yungas in the northwest. Near the strip, around 40 kilometers away, you'd also have the arid mountains, and although barren, they are absolutely not boring. Just take the Serena de Hornocal mountains, that look like someone got creative with Photoshop and made this place out of their imagination. And in fact, their beauty is even visible to passing astronauts. Not far from here is the Campo de Piedra Pómez, a stone area that looks like something a surrealist painter would put in one of their backgrounds. And if we go even further south, there is the most notable wine region of the 7th largest wine-producing country in the world, making their European relatives proud. The Middle West region is also the foundation for the tallest mountain in Argentina, but also anywhere that isn't Asia. Aconcagua stands at 6,961 meters and is one of 26 peaks in Argentina that rises over 6,000 meters. Traveling from the top of this mountain to something more reachable is the lesser-known Monte Desert that gives way to the 8th largest desert in the world, Patagonian, also known as the Patagonian Steppe. Yet Patagonian, that you might recognize from the jacket fame, is so diverse in itself that it also has the most memorable mountain possibly ever. Fitz Roy, a mountain that looks kinda like the fangs of the earth itself, sits at 3,405 meters and is so sharp that it erased the border between Chile and Argentina, as the ownership of the land is disputed between the countries. Patagonia also has quite a few lakes, with the most peculiar, not the biggest, being in the Nahuel Huapi Lake, as it hides the Argentine version of the Loch Ness monster Nahuelito. And when looking at supposedly taking picture of this creature, it actually looks very much like the one in the Loch Ness. Anyone have an explanation for this? As we stated before, the Andes are so massive that they even determine the weather, with the winds in the north blocked by the wall of rock suiting the Argentinian greenery and leaving the Chilean side desolated, creating the Atacama Desert. An opposite effect happens here in the south, but in Chile, where we find the Valdivian temperate rainforest that spills over into Argentina for that yin-yang effect. We started the geo review with rainforests, and now we reach glaciers. The 30 kilometers long Perito Moreno is the world's third largest reserve of freshwater, and is by many considered the eighth wonder of the world because of the spectacular view it offers. So what comes after glaciers? Well, the land of fire, the Tierra del Fuego archipelago of islands, with the eastern half of the biggest belonging to Argentina. And yes, the name is ironic, since the climate is cold and forest evergreen. And we're back at Ushuaia. Finally, it took us a long time even verbally. Although some Chilean settlements are located even more southern, they are far smaller than the 80,000 people city. Yet, this is not the most southern Argentine land or settlement by a long shot, as Argentina lays claims to a bit of over 1.4 million kilometers square of Antarctica, that in fact holds about 470 inhabitants. Now, it's fully understandable why the Argentinians are so proud of their country. On the population spectrum, Argentinians are third on the continent behind Brazil and Colombia, with a bit over 45 million people, ranking in just behind Uganda and just above another territorial giant, Algeria. But although placing on the 32nd spot on the population list, we don't see Argentina before the 217th spot when looking at population density of the world, as it holds only 17 people per square kilometers. But as in most countries, the population density varies widely, and between the 23 federal provinces in Argentina, the one named the same as the capital city but not including it has almost 56 people per square kilometer, while people probably get quite lonely in the Santa Cruz province with just 1.4 people per square kilometer. Now, the actual city of Buenos Aires has around 3 million people, followed by Cordoba and Rosario, who are the only other cities with over a million citizens. And then we of course have to mention the city of diagonals, La Plata, and the touristy beachy Mar del Plata. These places are named with words that are quite common in the Argentinian vernacular, at least if you know the first thing about their football. We are of course referring to the River Plate Football Club, an English version of the name Rio del Plata, which is really a gulf or sea, let's be real here. But the reason for the wording plata is connected to the name of Argentina itself, as it is derived from the Latin word for silver, which is argentum, while plata was a term used for silver that the country was famed to have in abundance, according to the conquistadors who were exploring it. Although the truth is that Argentina just makes the top 10 when it comes to silver production, and its main exports are way more food-oriented, like soybean, corn, meat and wheat, and most of its goods are going to the neighborly rivals Brazil. Now, the country is also planning to significantly exploit its vast lithium reserves in the hopes of this investment aiding the atrocious financial state of the country that was once on the level of the USA. Yet, despite the potential, Argentina is considered to be one of the biggest underachievers on the globe. Which is kinda strange if you ask me, since they overconsume the herbal energy-boosting tea yerba mate. But although the first impactful traces of human existence in Argentina date to over 9,000 years ago with the Cuevo de las Manos cave art, and although the land has even more ancient souvenirs left, like the fossils of massive dinosaurs like the Patagotitan and the Argentinosaurus, little is actually known before the colonial period, with the first settlement established in 1536, which later became Buenos Aires. Major parts of today's Argentina, along with its indigenous tribes, and the western settlers fell into the Spanish zone of dominance called the Viceroyalty of Peru. 2 centuries later, in 1776, the Spanish redraw the borders and made the Viceroyalty of the Rio de la Plata, signaling the rising importance of the region. In 1806, during the Napoleonic Wars, in which Spain was under French rule, the British fleet attacked the Rio de la Plata area, and whilst it failed, it showed to the Argentinians that they are capable enough to fight on their own without the help of the empire. This spurred a revolution in May of 1810, giving birth to the famed Argentine flag with the light blue and white pattern, honored further with the Sol de Mayo, or Son of May in English, representing Inti, the Incan god of sun, also referencing the start of the revolution. 6 years later, the royalists lost the war, and Argentina proclaimed its independence from Spain as the United Provinces of Rio de la Plata. While the impacts of the European Empire are visible to this day, most notably the official language being Spanish, yet the infighting resumed and the times saw a rise to caudillos, the glorified warlords on the faraway regions with private armies of their own. But the main fight of Argentina was between the Unitarians, who wanted the central seat of power for Argentina, and the Federalists, who were powered by the rural communities, and Gauchos, the Argentine equivalent to cowboys, became the important members of the movement and remain a folk symbol to this day. A lot of the combat was done due to failed constitution and in sense choosing the bureaucracy that still troubles the country. Then the country united and disunited again in 1952 when the province of Buenos Aires proclaimed its independence, but then joined the Argentine Confederation in 1961 again. But that didn't mean a long peace, as Argentina, together with Brazil and Uruguay, fought against Paraguay in the War of the Triple Alliance, the deadliest war in South America to this day. In 1978, Argentina pushed southwards in the conquest of the desert against the indigenous tribes, and in 1880 the country saw the last civil unrest as Buenos Aires tries to secede from the republic once again. Yet this time, the rebellion is extinguished and the city is made the capital of Argentina. By the end of the century, the GDP per capita of Argentina surpassed that of the United States and became the 7th wealthiest nation in the early 20th century. Near the change of the centuries, the European immigration to Argentina exploded, with Italians and Spanish being the most numerous, but also French, Germans, Poles, Russians, Croats, and to some degree people from the UK, and reports also stated that there are about 70,000 Welsh Patagonians, and also a Mennonite community in the country as well. And I guess this might have something to do with a kind of infamous quote of the Argentinian president, "Argentines are descended from the boats," as today over 60% of Argentinians have at least a partial Italian ancestry. Yet only 1.5 million people in the country speak Italian. But the Argentinian dialect of Spanish is heavily influenced by the language, especially depending on the province. However, the period of flourishing didn't last long, and the Great Depression hit Argentina strongly. For a country that didn't fight in either World War II or its prequel, it's strongly connected to its folklore, because of the famed escape of many Nazis to this country. Even though Argentina declared war on the Axis in 1945 as the war was nearing its end, and the infamous Juan Perón became the president of the country in 1946 after seizing power with the help of the military. While Argentinians love their country, they are also very vocal about criticizing it. And the post-World War II illustrates why, as between 1970 and 1976, the country had 11 presidents. That's 11 in just 6 years. Then between 2001 and 2003, they had a carousel with 5 El Presidentes. Even Watford doesn't change that many football managers. Yes, it's a football joke for a football nation. Despite the turmoil times from 1960 to 2021, the population in Argentina increased from its 20.5 million by almost 124% in just 61 years. From 1976, the country was led by a US-backed right-wing military junta that haunted the left-wing guerrillas and intellectuals. And there is one more event that marked the Argentine nation in the 20th century, an event that's called the Falklands Islands War, which took place in 1982 over the rocky archipelago in the Atlantic Ocean. Argentina invaded what they call Islas Malvinas, which are close to the size of Montenegro, hoping the British wouldn't be bothered too much, which wasn't the case, and the more modern army won after 10 weeks. While the subject of Malvinas remains a touchy subject, this hasn't stopped the US from considering Argentina a major non-member ally of NATO. A trait that might be changed soon, as in 2022, Argentina applied for membership in BRICS, the economic union led by Russia and China. And conflictly, the country is also enjoying a cultural boom, crowned by the World Cup victory in Qatar, another country we recently explained. And for all of you people who love football, you know for a fact that a 50-minute video could be made just by listing the names of notable Argentinian footballers. However, we will mention just the two that stands out: Lionel Messi and Diego Armando Maradona. Two people who hold almost godlike status in their country. Yet the Argentinians are unavoidably in many sports, such as basketball, rugby, tennis and volleyball. While culturally, there are also strong influences, like that of Pope Francis, who is Argentinian and is perhaps the first head of the Catholic Church liked by non-believers. He is also a strong reason why almost 63% of Argentinians today remain devout Catholics, followed by 15.3% Protestants and 19% practicing no religion at all. On the other hand of soft power, Argentine pop stars are having a worldwide breakthrough, somewhat resembling the establishment of the South Korean music K-pop in the past decade. And of course, Argentina will forever be linked to their style of dancing, the elegantly sensual tango. Other areas of culture like cinema have had a global recognition, particularly a truly remarkable film named The Secret in Their Eyes, receiving deserved accolades. The people of this area that we call Argentina truly left their mark on the world by whatever means and talents they had. Some did it with their feet, others with their hands. And it's not a phrase to say that we only scratch the surface of this country. And if this video gets the crowd of an average Argentinian barbecue, we surely make a follow-up. Thanks for watching this video. Now take a trip to the next place on Earth by watching any of the videos on your screen right now.